Good morning, everyone. Once again, this is Black Forest coming to you with another market analysis video. This morning, we're going to be looking at the Euro USD. But before we break down this currency pair, we have to state that this video is for academic purposes only. This is not financial advice, but we know why the reason why you guys are here, which is to try to find credible Forex content that can help improve your ability as a trader and to help put a little bit of extra money into your pocket. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started to break down this currency pair. Okay. Now, before we get into what's happening on the chart, let us talk about the fundamentals of the euro and the USD respectively, with the euro first, okay? Now, there's a few factors surrounding the euro that's continually making this one of our weaker currencies going into this trading week. First thing first is that every member country of the entire EU is suffering from inflation, okay? Secondly, every member country of the entire EU is suffering from high gas prices. Okay. Thirdly, the entire EU is in a step away from being in a full blown recession. And what is catalyzing this step towards recession is the negative effects that's happening on the EU from the Russian sanctions. Because they tried to punish Russia with sanctioning their natural goods, their energy, and their natural gases, with not understanding that they are the major consumers and major trading partners of Russia for natural goods, natural gases, and energy. Okay, so when they put these sanctions in place, they doesn't allow their own government or their own businesses to do any type of dealings of business with Russia. So now this is starting to have a negative effect on the entire EU's economy. Every member nation also is feeling this very, very heavily. Okay. Then on top of that, you have a destabilization of the European economy from the war that's being fought on Russia and Ukraine. And it's getting so bad now that we actually are starting to look like we're going to be in a food shortage. That's going to affect the entire world pretty soon. And I'll make a video addressing that and how to trade Forex with this food shortages news coming out. So you guys go be sure to check that out, okay? But this is what's happening with the euro that is making it weak. Okay, and it's one of the major three European currencies, which is the euro, the British pound, and the CHF, and they are all weak because of all these factors that were just previously discussed. So until we start to see some economic policies and measures in place from the EU to combat each member nation's inflation, each member nation's economic woes, and until we start to see good promising talks of peace and ceasefire in Ukraine, the British pound, the CHF, and the euro are going to remain our weaker currencies. Okay. Now, with the USD, we have somewhat of a different opposite effect. The American government and the Fed is taking a very aggressive stance in combating inflation. They have put several economic measures, policies, and interventions in place to bring prices down, consumer goods prices down, and to bring oil prices down as well. And along with that, they also did increase the interest rate. Increasing the interest rate is one of the fundamental economic tools that you do have to combat inflation as well. Okay, and also the American government and the Feds are also actively talking about different other measures and policies and interventions and economic measures, policies, and intervention in place to combat inflation as well and high gas prices. And just them talking about it is enough for the US dollar to start gaining strength and more confidence, even though there is no action plan in place. Okay. But if these things do not work, if the increase in the interest rate don't work, the things that they're discussing that they eventually will turn into an action plan don't work, the other economic policies, measures, and interventions don't work, then we will see the US dollar lose all its current strength that it has gained, and it will become much weaker than it was before. Okay. But if what they're discussing and they turn it into an action plan does start to work, if these economic measures and interventions and policies, along with the interest rate, start to combat inflation more expeditiously and aggressively, then we will see a rapid increased strength in the US dollar. Okay. So let's discuss what's happening on the chart now. Okay. So around this time here, when price started to drop, this is when we had aggression picking up between Russia and Ukraine. Right here was when they put troops on the border, and right here was when the invasion began. And since then, as you can see, price has been dropping and dropping. Okay. And every time we hear things about peace talks, the price started going up just a little bit and just a little bit, but we're still not having an aggressive pick up like we would want to as compared to how aggressive the downside is. So this is basically telling us that the sellers are still here in the building. They were just kind of chilling out, but it now looks like the sellers are becoming a lot more active. Okay, with right now currently prices dropping. So we may drop as low as here before we start getting rangy, or we may drop as low as here before we start getting rangy and start to see a pickup in price. The only way we will see price turnover is if we start to see a fundamental shift happening. But being that the stance that America is taking about combating inflation versus all these different factors negatively affecting the EU and the European continent as whole, it doesn't look too likely that that's going to be the case. Okay, so we're still looking like we're going to have price continue to drop, and price may drop as far as here, or price may drop as far as here before we start getting rangy and having price turnover. So at least it looks like for the opening of this New York session, going into the Asian session, and possibly going into the London session through the late night into the early morning, we're going to continue to have some price drop. Okay, but we're going to have to play this by the air to see what the economic news is going to be and what is going to be the the geopolitics affecting the economy, how that's going to play out too. But for the most part, like I said, we're going to be dropping down to either this area here or this area here before we start to get a little shaky and price starts to go back up. Okay. I hope that information was helpful for you guys. Happy trading.